The mop hit Maya Chen's chest before she even saw his hand move. Sergeant Derek "Bull" Mason stood over her 230 pounds of muscle and unearned authority pointing at muddy boot prints near the entrance. "Clean this place up," he barked at the young Asian woman in plain clothes. "What are you deaf?" I said. "M.O.P." The entire Camp Pendleton administrative building went silent. 40 Marines watched. Some laughed. None of them could see the small anchor tattoo hidden behind her left ear. None of them knew that 6 weeks ago she'd completed a classified mission that saved 300 American lives. And Mason definitely couldn't imagine that this 20-year-old cleaning girl held a rank higher than anyone in this building, including the colonel watching from upstairs. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. And if stories about courage and justice hit different for you, subscribe now and stay until the end. Because what happens to Sergeant Mason, he never satisfies it coming. Maya Chen picked up the mop. She didn't say a word, didn't flinch, didn't give Mason the satisfaction of seeing anything cross her face. She just bent down, wrapped her fingers around that wooden handle and started mopping. Behind her, the laughter spread like wildfire. "Look at her go," someone called out. "Finally found someone who knows their place." "Hey, you missed a spot, sweetheart." Mason crossed his arms and smiled. That was the thing about men like him. They didn't just want obedience. They wanted humiliation. They wanted to see you break. Maya pushed the mop across the floor in slow, deliberate strokes. She'd been at Camp Pendleton for exactly 4 hours. She'd arrived in civilian clothes, faded jeans, a gray hoodie, sneakers that had seen better days. No uniform, no insignia, no indication that she was anything other than what she appeared to be, a small Asian woman who looked young enough to still be in college. The assumption was instant. The treatment was predictable. And Maya had let it happen. Corporal Torres watched from across the room. She was the only woman in Mason's squad, and she hadn't laughed. But she hadn't said anything either. She just stood there, coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips, watching this stranger mop floors while grown men jeered. Something didn't sit right. The girl's hands were wrong. Torres had cleaned enough floors in her life to know what those hands should look like, soft, unremarkable, maybe some calluses from ordinary work. But this girl's hands had scars. Small ones, precise ones, the kind you got from handling equipment that most people never touched. And her eyes. The girl kept her head down, but every few seconds her gaze would flick up doorways, windows, the position of every person in the room. Torres had seen that look before. On operators. On people who'd been trained to always know their exits. "Torres." Mason's voice cut through her thoughts. "You gonna stand there all day, or you gonna get back to work?" Torres blinked. "Yes, Sergeant." She walked away, but she kept watching from the corner of her eye. Mason strutted over to where Maya was mopping. He stood close, too close, and looked down at her with that smile that made Torres's skin crawl. "You speak English, right?" he said slow and loud, like he was talking to a child. "Because I need this whole floor done before lunch. Whole floor. You understand?" Maya nodded. "Good." Mason leaned in closer. "And when you're done with that, the bathrooms need work. Toilets are backed up in the men's room. Think you can handle that, sweetheart?" More laughter from his squad. Maya's expression didn't change. "Yes, sir." "Sir." Mason grinned at his buddies. "She called me sir. At least someone around here knows respect." He walked away, and Maya went back to mopping. Upstairs, Colonel James Whitfield watched through his office window. He'd been watching since the moment Maya walked through the front door. He'd seen Mason intercept her, seen the mop thrown at her chest, seen every second of the humiliation that followed. His phone buzzed. He answered without looking away from the window. "She's here," he said quietly. "And it's worse than we thought." The voice on the other end was calm. "How bad?" "Mason's already made her his personal target. Physical intimidation, racial comments, the works. All within the first hour." "Did she break cover?" Whitfield almost smiled. "No, she's mopping the floor right now." A pause. "That's Lieutenant Commander Chen. She graduated top of her class at the academy, completed Shadowfall at 20 years old, and she's mopping a floor. That's why she's the best. She understands the mission. Keep me updated. And James, yeah, don't let it go too far." Whitfield hung up. He looked down at Maya, still pushing that mop across the linoleum. Too far, he thought. That's exactly where it needs to go. Maya finished the main floor in 45 minutes. Then she started on the hallway, then the break room, then the bathrooms. The toilets weren't actually backed up, Mason had lied, just to make her job worse. But she cleaned them anyway. Scrubbed every surface until it gleamed. It wasn't about the cleaning, it was about watching. In 3 hours, Maya had learned more about this base's command climate than any official inspection could uncover in a month. She'd seen how Mason treated people he considered beneath him. She'd seen who laughed at his jokes and who looked away uncomfortably. She'd seen the fear in the eyes of the younger Marines, the resignation in the older ones. She'd documented everything in her head. Names, faces, specific incidents, word-for-word quotes. All of it would go in her report. Private James Wheeler approached her around 1400 hours. He was young, 19, maybe 20, with the kind of nervous energy that said he hadn't been in long enough to grow a thick skin. "Hey," he said quietly, checking over his shoulder. "Hey, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry about earlier. Sergeant Mason, he's just like that, with everyone. It's not personal." Maya kept scrubbing. "It's fine." "It's not, though." Wheeler glanced around again. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but maybe you should report it to someone what he did the way he talked to you. That's not right." Maya looked up at him for the first time. Really looked. He was scared. She could see it in the tension around his mouth, the way his hands kept moving. He knew speaking to her was a risk. He knew Mason would make his life hell if anyone reported back. But he'd done it anyway. "What's your name?" she asked. "Wheeler, James Wheeler, Private First Class." Maya nodded slowly. "Thank you, Private Wheeler. I appreciate you saying something. I just wish I could do more. But Mason, you don't understand. He runs this building. Everyone's scared of him, even the officers." "The officers?" Wheeler's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Captain Rodriguez tried to write him up 6 months ago. Next thing you know, she's transferred to Alaska. Everyone knows Mason has connections somewhere up the chain. Nobody wants to be next." Maya filed that away. Connections up the chain. That explained a lot. "Thank you," she said again. "You should go before someone sees you talking to me." Wheeler hesitated. "Will you be okay?" Such a simple question. Such genuine concern. Maya almost smiled. "I'll be fine, Private. I promise." Wheeler nodded and walked away quickly, just as Mason came around the corner. "Wheeler," Mason's voice boomed. "What are you doing over here?" "Nothing, Sergeant. Just needed to use the bathroom." Mason looked at Maya, then back at Wheeler. His eyes narrowed. "The bathroom's the other direction." I got turned around." "Got turned around?" Mason stepped closer to the young private. "In a building you've worked in for 8 months. You got turned around." Wheeler's face went pale. Were you talking to her?" "No, Sergeant." Don't lie to me, Wheeler." Maya watched the interaction, still holding her cleaning supplies. She watched Mason invade Wheeler's personal space, watched the younger man shrink back, watched the power dynamic play out exactly as she'd expected. I asked if she knew where the bathroom was. Wheeler said, his voice barely steady. "That's all." She didn't answer. Mason stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed, sudden and sharp. "You asked the cleaning lady for directions. That's pathetic, Wheeler. Even for you." He turned to Maya. "Hey, sweetheart, next time one of my men talks to you, you don't answer. You're not here to make friends. You're here to clean. Got it?" Maya lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir." "Good." Mason gave Wheeler one last withering look. "Back to work, both of you." He walked away, and Wheeler let out a shaky breath. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Maya. "I tried." "You did more than most," she replied softly. "Remember that." The afternoon shift change brought new faces, but the atmosphere didn't improve. Mason held an informal meeting with his squad, 8 Marines, gathered in a loose circle, while he stood at the center voice, carrying across the room. "Listen up. I know some of you have been wondering about our new addition." He gestured toward Maya without looking at her. "Corporate sent her over. Temporary contractor. Cleaning staff." "She's not from the regular service?" someone asked. "Nope. Some outside company. Don't know the name, don't care. Point is, she's not one of us. She's not military. She's civilian contract labor, and she's here because some genius in procurement decided we needed supplemental janitorial support." He made air quotes with his fingers. "Whatever that means." "How long is she here?" Torres asked. Her voice was neutral, carefully so. 2 weeks. Mason shrugged. "Maybe less if she can't keep up. These contract workers, they quit all the time. Can't handle the environment." Laughter from most of the squad. Torres didn't join in. "Anyway," Mason continued, "she's not your problem. Don't talk to her. Don't help her. Don't even acknowledge her unless you have to. She's here to work, not to socialize. Anyone got questions?" Silence. "Good. Dismissed." The group dispersed. Torres lingered, watching Mason walk over to the coffee station. She'd served under him for 11 months now. She'd seen him push boundaries before crude jokes, inappropriate comments, that constant need to establish dominance. But this felt different. This felt targeted. She approached him carefully. "Sergeant." Mason turned, cup in hand. "What is it, Torres? The new contractor. The way you're treating her." "What about it?" Torres chose her words carefully. "I'm just saying. It might draw attention. If someone files a complaint." "A complaint?" Mason laughed. "She's a contract worker, Torres. She's not even in the system. Who's she gonna complain to? Her cleaning company? Please." "But if Colonel Whitfield doesn't care about civilian contractors. He's got real problems to deal with." Mason took a long sip of his coffee. "Relax. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just making sure she knows the pecking order. That's my job. Maintain discipline. Establish hierarchy. She's not in our hierarchy." Mason's expression darkened slightly. "Everyone's in my hierarchy in this building, Torres. Everyone." He walked away, leaving Torres standing alone by the coffee machine. She looked across the room at Maya, who was quietly emptying trash cans, head down, movements efficient. Something was wrong. Torres could feel it in her gut. She just couldn't figure out what. At 17:30, Maya finished her assigned tasks and made her way toward the rear exit. She'd been working for nearly 8 hours straight. No breaks, no lunch, no complaints. Mason was waiting by the door. "Heading out." Maya stopped. "Yes, sir." Sir? He laughed again. You keep calling me that. I like it. Shows respect. Maya said nothing. Mason moved closer. You know what I think? I think you're smarter than you look. I think you understand how things work around here. The way you keep your head down, don't cause trouble. That's good. That's exactly what I want from you. Thank you, sir. But here's the thing. His voice dropped, losing its mocking edge. I don't like surprises. I don't like people who show up out of nowhere without explanation. And I really don't like the way you look at things. Maya's expression remained blank. I don't understand. I think you do? Mason leaned in. I've been watching you all day. The way your eyes move, the way you're always aware of who's where. That's not how cleaning ladies act. That's how operators act. For the first time, something flickered in Maya's eyes. Something cold. I'm just a contractor, she said quietly. Like you said. Maybe. Mason pulled back slightly. Or maybe you're something else. Something I haven't figured out yet. He smiled. But I will. I always do. He stepped aside, clearing the path to the door. See you tomorrow, sweetheart. Bright and early. We've got a lot of floors that need cleaning. Maya walked past him without another word. But as she stepped outside into the California evening, her mind was already working. He's suspicious. That changes things. She'd planned to maintain cover for at least another week, build a comprehensive case, document everything through official channels. But Mason was smarter than she'd expected, more observant. If he started digging, started asking questions about her placement. Her phone buzzed. Encrypted message. Whitfield. Did he make you? Maya typed back. Not yet, but he's asking questions. Whitfield. How long do you need? Maya looked back at the building. Through the glass doors, she could see Mason watching her. Even from this distance, she could feel his suspicion. She typed, 3 more days. Then we move. Whitfield understood. Be careful. Maya put her phone away and started walking toward the temporary housing she'd been assigned. 3 more days. 3 more days of mops and toilets and, yes sir, 3 more days of being invisible. 3 more days of watching Derek Mason think he had power over her. And then he would learn exactly who he'd been dealing with. That night in her small quarters, Maya pulled out a secure laptop and began her preliminary report. She wrote in precise, clinical language, Day 1 Assessment Command, Climate Administrative Building, 7, Camp Pendleton, Subject Sergeant Derek Mason, E5. Initial observations indicate significant pattern of workplace harassment, intimidation, and abuse of authority. Specific incidents documented. She typed for 2 hours, recording every detail, every word Mason had said, every Marine who had laughed, every person who had looked away. But she also wrote about Private Wheeler, about the risk he took, about the decency that still existed even in environments poisoned by people like Mason. There was always light, she'd learned. Even in the darkest places. You just had to know where to look. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Let them underestimate you. Let them think they've won. And when they're not looking, that's when you strike. Maya saved the file and closed her laptop. Tomorrow, Mason would escalate. She was certain of it. His type always did when they felt their control slipping. He'd push harder, cross more lines, reveal more of who he truly was. And she would let him. Because every line he crossed was another nail in his coffin. She lay back on her bunk and stared at the ceiling. 20 years old. Lieutenant Commander in the United States Navy. Security clearance that most admirals would never achieve. Veteran of operations that would never be declassified. And tomorrow, she would go back to mopping floors. Because that was the mission. And Maya Chen never failed a mission. At 2200 hours across the base, Colonel Whitfield sat in his darkened office, reviewing Maya's personnel file. Most of it was redacted, entire pages blacked out. The kind of redactions that meant the classified version made the official version look like a children's book. But he knew enough. He knew about her parents. The car crash that killed them when she was 7. The grandmother who raised her. The fierce determination that drove her to achieve things most people couldn't imagine. He knew about the academy. Top of her class in everything. Languages, combat training, cyber warfare. Instructors called her the quiet one. Not because she was shy, because she never needed to prove anything to anyone. She just performed. Flawlessly. He knew about Shadowfall, the operation that had put her on the map. 300 American lives saved because a 20-year-old lieutenant figured out what an entire intelligence apparatus had missed. They'd tried to give her a medal. She'd turned it down. "No medals for doing my job," she'd said. "The work is the reward." Now she was here, mopping floors, taking abuse, documenting everything. The irony wasn't lost on him. His phone rang. Private line. "Whitfield." "James." The voice belonged to Admiral Patricia Cross, one of the most powerful figures in the Navy. "I've been reading Maya's preliminary report. This is worse than we thought." "Yes, ma'am. Mason's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a culture here, a pattern. It goes deeper." "How deep?" Whitfield hesitated. "I have reason to believe Mason has protection from someone senior, someone who's been burying complaints for years." Silence on the line. "Find out who," Cross said finally. "Whatever it takes, whatever Maya needs." "Understood. And James, keep her safe. She's not just valuable, she's irreplaceable." "I know." "Then act like it." The line went dead. Whitfield set down the phone and looked at Maya's photo, the one from her official file, not the classified one. Young. Determined. Eyes that held secrets most people couldn't comprehend. He'd known her father once, Lieutenant Commander David Chen, killed in the same car crash that orphaned Maya. They'd served together briefly years ago. Sometimes Whitfield wondered if David would be proud of what his daughter had become. Then he remembered her service record, and he knew the answer was yes. He closed the file and turned off his lamp. Tomorrow would be interesting. 3 miles away, in a bar just off base, Derek Mason sat alone in a corner booth. He wasn't drinking heavily, just nursing a beer, scrolling through his phone, running searches. The girl's face was burned into his memory. That quiet compliance, those watchful eyes. Contract worker, his ass. He'd spent 15 years in the military. He knew how to read people. And that girl wasn't what she claimed to be. He pulled up her employee record, the one from the cleaning company that had supposedly sent her. Basic information. Name Maya Chen, age 20. Address local temporary housing. Previous employment. Various contract positions. No social media, no photos, no digital footprint of any kind. Red flags everywhere. Mason finished his beer and flagged down the bartender for another. He didn't know who Maya Chen really was, but he was going to find out. And when he did, he smiled. When he did, she was going to wish she'd never walked through his door. Maya arrived at 600 the next morning. The building was nearly empty, just a few early risers, and the night shift winding down. She collected her cleaning supplies from the storage closet and started on the east corridor. She'd made it exactly 12 minutes before Mason found her. "You're early." He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, coffee cup in hand. "Eager to impress." "Just doing my job, sir." Mason walked toward her slowly. "I did some checking last night. Called your cleaning company. Asked about you." Maya's hands never stopped moving. Mop. Ring mop. "You know what they told me?" "No, sir." "They said you were a last-minute placement. Emergency fill-in. The girl who was supposed to come got sick, and you were the only one available." Mason took a sip of his coffee. "Convenient timing." "I needed the work." He circled around her, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "Where are you from originally? Your English is good, but there's something off about it." Maya kept mopping. "San Diego, sir. Born and raised." "San Diego," he laughed. "Right. And I'm from Mars." She didn't respond. Mason moved closer. "Here's what I think. I think you're not from any cleaning company. I think someone placed you here for a reason. And I think you're going to tell me who." Maya finally looked up. Her expression was blank, but her eyes held something Mason couldn't read. "I'm just here to clean, Sergeant. That's all." "We'll see about that." He turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the corridor. Maya waited until his footsteps faded completely. Then she pulled out her phone and sent a single encrypted word, accelerating. The response came in 3 seconds. "Proceed with caution." Caution, she thought. That ship had sailed. The morning passed in tense silence. Maya cleaned. Marines came and went. But something had shifted. She could feel it in the way people looked at her. Word had spread that Mason was suspicious. That meant everyone was watching. At 0900, Torres approached her in the break room. "Hey." Torres glanced over her shoulder before continuing. "Look, I don't know who you are, and honestly I don't want to know. But Mason's been asking questions about you all morning. He called the cleaning company twice. He's trying to get your personnel file." Maya set down her mop. "Why are you telling me this?" Torres hesitated. "Because something about this whole situation feels wrong. And because," she lowered her voice, "because I've seen Mason destroy people before. Good people. And I don't want to watch it happen again." "Who did he destroy?" Torres's face tightened. "Captain Rodriguez. She was our CO before she got transferred. She tried to report Mason for harassment. Wrote up everything went through proper channels. 3 weeks later, she was on a plane to Alaska, and Mason's still here running things like nothing happened. How is that possible if she filed an official report? That's just it. The report disappeared, and suddenly everyone who backed her up changed their stories." Torres shook her head. "Someone protected him. Someone with enough rank to make problems go away." Maya filed this information carefully. "Do you know who?" "No. But whoever it is, they're high enough that even Colonel Whitfield can't touch them." Torres checked over her shoulder again. "I shouldn't be telling you this. If Mason finds out, he won't." "How can you be sure?" Maya met her eyes. "Because I'm very good at keeping secrets." Torres stared at her for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I believe you," she said quietly. "I don't know why, but I do." She walked away, leaving Maya alone with a mop and 100 new questions. Someone was protecting Mason. Someone with serious power. This mission had just gotten a lot more complicated. At 1100, Mason called an all-hands meeting. Every Marine in the building assembled in the main hall, 32 people, standing in loose formation, while Mason paced at the front like a general addressing his troops. "Listen up," he barked. "We've got an inspection coming. Regional command. 3 weeks out. That means this building needs to be spotless. Every corner, every closet, every bathroom. I want this place looking like the president himself might walk through. He paused, scanning the assembled faces. Now, some of you might be thinking our new cleaning contractor will handle it. He gestured toward Maya, standing at the back with her supplies. But let's be real. She's temporary help. She's not one of us. And the standards for this inspection are military standards, not civilian. Mason pointed at Wheeler. Wheeler, you're on bathroom duty. I want those floors so clean you can eat off them. Wheeler's face went pale. Sergeant, I have administrative duties. Did I ask about your duties? I said bathrooms, starting now. Yes, Sergeant. Mason continued assigning tasks, all the worst jobs, all the most tedious work. And with each assignment, Maya noticed a pattern. Everyone who'd shown her even a moment of kindness was getting punished. Torres got basement storage organization. Wheeler got bathrooms. A young corporal who'd held a door open for Maya yesterday was assigned to deep clean the motor pool. It wasn't coincidence. It was retribution. Mason was sending a message: help the outsider suffer the consequences. After the meeting dispersed, Maya found Wheeler in the hallway. His shoulders were slumped, his face tight with barely contained frustration. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Wheeler looked up, startled. What no? This isn't your fault. He's punishing you because you talked to me. He's punishing me because he's a bully who gets off on power. Wheeler's voice cracked slightly. This is what he does. He finds excuses to make people miserable. You could have been anyone. You just happened to be the excuse this week. Maya studied his face. So young. So beaten down. How long have you been dealing with this? 8 months, since I got assigned here. Wheeler let out a bitter laugh. I put in for a transfer 3 times. Denied every time. Mason has to sign off on transfer requests and he won't let anyone leave. He says it's about unit cohesion. Really, he just likes having people to control. Have you reported him? Wheeler's expression darkened. Once. My first month. I filed a formal complaint about harassment. What happened? Mason found out. Called me into his office. Told me that complaints have a way of getting lost, but grudges last forever. Wheeler's hands clenched at his sides. He made my life hell for 3 months after that. Extra duties, public humiliation, the works. I learned my lesson. Maya's jaw tightened. This wasn't just harassment. This was systematic abuse enabled by whoever was protecting Mason from accountability. I'm sorry, she said again. Don't be. Wheeler straightened slightly. It's not your fault the system is broken. I just hope whoever does fix it takes a really long time and makes Mason watch. He walked away toward the bathrooms. Maya watched him go, a cold determination settling in her chest. The system wasn't broken. It was being manipulated by people who wanted it broken. And she was going to find out exactly who they were. At 1300, Maya was cleaning the second-floor offices when she heard Mason's voice through an open door. I'm telling you something's not right about her. Another voice, older, impatient. Derek, you've been saying that for 2 days. She's a cleaning lady. What do you think she is, a spy? I don't know what she is, but I'm going to find out. Maya moved closer to the door, pretending to mop the same spot over and over. You're being paranoid, the second voice said. You've been paranoid ever since the Rodriguez thing. Just do your job and stop looking for problems where there aren't any. The Rodriguez thing. Mason's voice dropped dangerously. You said that was handled. It was handled. I told you her transfer went through, the complaint disappeared, it's over. Then why do I feel like someone's watching me? Silence. Then the second voice, carefully controlled, maybe because you've got a guilty conscience, or maybe because you've been harassing a civilian contractor in front of 30 witnesses and you're finally realizing that was stupid. I haven't done anything wrong. You threw a mop at her derrick on her first day, in front of half the building. She was in my way. She's 5'3" and weighs maybe 110 pounds. She wasn't in anyone's way, A long sigh. Look, just back off. Give her the normal work, let her do her job, and stop making yourself a target. The inspection is in 3 weeks. The last thing we need is some contractor filing a complaint right before regional command shows up. She won't file a complaint. How do you know? Because she's smart. She knows how things work here. She keeps her head down, does what she's told. She's not going to cause problems. For your sake, I hope you're right. Footsteps approached the door. Maya moved quickly, retreating down the hallway with her mop and bucket. She rounded a corner just as the door opened, and 2 men emerged. Mason she recognized immediately. The second man was older, silver-haired, wearing the eagles of a full colonel. Not Whitfield, someone else. Someone she didn't recognize from any of the personnel files she'd reviewed. She committed his face to memory. Then she pulled out her phone and typed, "Who is the colonel assigned to Building 7, not Whitfield?" The response came 30 seconds later, Colonel Harrison Burke. Regional liaison. Why Maya typed, "He's protecting Mason. Need background." A longer pause. Then understood. Be careful. Maya put her phone away and went back to mopping. Colonel Harrison Burke. She had a name now, and names were power. That afternoon, Mason escalated. He found her in the basement storage area, surrounded by dusty boxes and forgotten equipment. She was technically supposed to be organizing, but really she was photographing everything, documenting the disarray that had been allowed to accumulate under Mason's command. "There you are," his voice echoed off the concrete walls. "Thought you might be hiding down here." Maya didn't look up from the box she was sorting. "Just doing my job, Sergeant." Mm-hmm. He walked closer. Too close. "You know, I've been thinking about what you said, about being from San Diego." "What about it?" I looked up the cleaning company's address. "It's in San Diego, too. Convenient, right? Local girl, local company." Maya kept sorting. Papers, files, more papers. "But here's the thing." Mason picked up a dusty folder and flipped through it absently. "I called the company again this morning. Asked specifically about Maya Chen. Asked when they hired you what jobs you'd worked before." Maya's hands slowed almost imperceptibly. "You know what they told me? No, sir. They said you started 3 weeks ago. Just 3 weeks. Before that, nothing, no work history, no references, no previous positions." Mason dropped the folder back into the box. "It's almost like Maya Chen didn't exist until 3 weeks ago." Maya finally looked up at him. "Lots of people start new jobs," she said carefully. "Sure, but most people have some kind of past, some kind of trail. You—" Mason shook his head. "You're a ghost, and I don't like ghosts in my building." He moved even closer. Maya could smell the coffee on his breath, the hint of aftershave. "I'm going to figure you out," he said quietly. "Whoever you really are, whatever you're really doing here, I'm going to find out. And when I do," he smiled, "you're going to wish you'd never walked through my door." He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. Maya watched him go. Her cover was holding, but barely. Mason was digging, and eventually he'd dig deep enough to hit something real. She needed to accelerate the timeline. She pulled out her phone and typed, "Request meeting. Tonight. Urgent." The response was immediate, 2100, location Alpha. Maya put her phone away and went back to sorting boxes. Tonight, things would change. One way or another. At 2100, Maya slipped out of her temporary quarters and made her way across the base. The night was cool, quiet, with only the distant sound of generators and the occasional patrol vehicle breaking the silence. Location Alpha was a maintenance shed near the motor pool, Isolated, rarely used, perfect for clandestine meetings. Colonel Whitfield was already there. "You're early," he said. "So are you." Whitfield gestured to a pair of folding chairs set up in the corner. They sat facing each other, voices low. "Talk to me," he said. Maya laid it out everything she'd learned over the past 2 days. Mason's harassment, the systematic punishment of anyone who showed her kindness, the conversation she'd overheard between Mason and Colonel Burke. "Burke," Whitfield repeated, his expression darkening. "I should have known." "You know him?" "Harrison Burke and I go back 20 years. We came up together, served in the same units. He was always ambitious, the kind of officer who cared more about his career than his people." "He's protecting Mason." "Apparently." Whitfield leaned back in his chair. "The question is why? What does Mason have on him? Or what does Mason do for him?" Maya had been thinking about that. "Mason runs this building. He controls information flow, personnel assignments, everything. If Burke needed things to disappear, complaints, reports, evidence, Mason would be the perfect person to make that happen." "A mutually beneficial arrangement." "Exactly. Burke protects Mason from accountability, and Mason protects Burke from scrutiny." Whitfield was silent for a long moment. "How deep do you think this goes?" "I don't know yet, but I overheard Mason say something about the Rodriguez thing being handled. Captain Rodriguez, she tried to report him before she was transferred." "I remember. She came to me, actually. Wanted my help filing the complaint." Whitfield's jaw tightened. "I told her to go through proper channels, follow the system. And the system failed her. The system was corrupted. There's a difference." He looked at Maya. "If Burke is involved, this is bigger than one sergeant harassing people. This is systemic corruption at the command level." "Which is exactly what we suspected." "Yes, but suspecting and proving are two different things." Whitfield stood and paced the small space. "We need evidence, hard evidence. Something that can't be explained away or buried." "I'm working on it." "Work faster. If Mason figures out who you are before we're ready to move." "He won't." "You can't be certain of that." Maya stood to face him. "Sir, with respect, this is what I do. I've operated under deeper cover in far more dangerous situations than this. Mason is suspicious, but he doesn't actually know anything. As long as I maintain the facade, he can't touch me." Whitfield studied her face. "Your father would be proud, you know." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She hadn't expected that, hadn't been prepared for anyone to mention David Chen. "You knew him? We served together, briefly years ago, before the accident." Whitfield's voice softened. "He was a good man, one of the best I ever served with, and he talked about you constantly. His little Maya, how smart she was, how brave." Maya's throat tightened. "I didn't know. He said you were going to change the world someday. He believed in you even then." She took a breath, steadied herself. "I'm trying," she said quietly. "Every day I'm trying." Whitfield nodded. "I know, and for what it's worth, I think you're succeeding." He headed for the door, then paused. 3 more days, Maya. That's all I can give you. After that, the inspection timeline takes over and we lose our window. 3 days is enough. I hope you're right." He slipped out into the darkness. Maya waited 5 minutes before following. 3 days. 72 hours to find the evidence she needed. To expose Burke and Mason both. To prove that the system could work if only people had the courage to make it work. She touched the anchor tattoo behind her ear. For her father. For Captain Rodriguez. For Private Wheeler and Torres and everyone else who'd suffered under men who thought power was the same as worth. 3 days. She was going to make them count. When she got back to her quarters, there was a note under her door. Unsigned, handwritten on plain paper. It read, "I know who you are. Meet me tomorrow. 0800. Basement storage. Alone. A friend." Maya stared at the note for a long moment. Either someone in the building had figured out her identity and wanted to help, or Mason had set a trap and she was walking right into it. Either way, she'd be there at 0800, because that was what the mission required. And Maya Chen never failed a mission. Maya stood outside the basement storage door at 0755, listening. Nothing. No movement, no breathing, no telltale sounds of an ambush waiting. Either whoever sent that note was genuinely alone, or they were very good at staying quiet. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. Torres stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, face tight with tension. "Close the door," Torres said. Maya did. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Torres studied Maya with the kind of intensity that said she'd spent a sleepless night deciding whether to be here. "I know you're not a cleaning contractor," Torres finally said. Maya kept her expression neutral. "What makes you say that?" "Because I spent 6 years in military intelligence before I transferred to this unit. I know what surveillance looks like. I know what information gathering looks like." Torres took a step closer. "And I know what an undercover operative looks like." Maya said nothing. "The way you move, the way you watch everyone, the way you react to Mason's harassment, or don't react. Nobody's that calm unless they've been trained to be." Torres's voice dropped. "So who are you really, CIA NCIS? Some kind of Inspector General plant?" Maya considered her options. Torres had clearly figured out enough to be dangerous. Lying would only make things worse. "Naval Inspector General's office," she said quietly. "Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen. I'm here to assess command climate and document systemic issues." Torres let out a long breath. "I knew it. I knew something was off." "How long have you suspected?" "Since day one. When Mason threw that mop at you and you just took it. No anger, no fear, nothing. That's not how normal people respond to humiliation." Torres shook her head. "Normal people would have cried, or quit, or at least looked upset. I've had practice." "Clearly." Torres uncrossed her arms. "So what happens now? Are you going to arrest Mason, shut this whole thing down?" "It's not that simple. Why not? You've seen what he does. You've documented it right. That's what you've been doing with your phone, taking pictures, recording evidence. Mason is a symptom, not the disease." Maya moved closer, lowering her voice. "There's someone protecting him. Someone with enough power to make complaints disappear and transfer anyone who causes problems." Torres's face went pale. "Burke. You know, I suspected. Everyone suspects." Torres ran a hand through her hair. "But suspecting and proving are two different things." "I know." Maya pulled out her phone. "That's why I need your help." Torres stared at the phone, then at Maya. "My help? I'm nobody. I'm just a corporal trying to survive until my enlistment ends. You're someone who's been inside this unit for 11 months. You've seen things, heard things. You know where the bodies are buried." Maya held her gaze. "I need a witness. Someone who can corroborate the pattern of abuse, the cover-ups, the connection to Burke. If I do that, Mason will destroy me, just like he destroyed Captain Rodriguez. Not if we take them both down first." Torres laughed bitterly. "You make it sound so simple." "I never said it was simple. I said it was necessary." Maya stepped closer. "Torres, I've read your file. You joined the military to make a difference. You believed in the system. And then you got assigned here and watched that system fail over and over again. Torres's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. This is your chance to fix it, to prove that the system can work when good people stand up. Maya extended her hand. Help me. Please. Torres looked at the hand for a long moment. Then she looked up at Maya's face, searching for something sincerity maybe, or certainty. Whatever she found must have been enough. She took Maya's hand and shook it. What do you need me to do? Maya smiled for the first time in 3 days. Tell me everything. For the next 2 hours, Torres talked. She told Maya about Captain Rodriguez, how she'd documented 6 months of harassment before filing her complaint, how the complaint had been lost, somewhere between the base commander's office and regional headquarters, how she'd been transferred within 3 weeks of asking questions. She told Maya about the other victims. A young private who'd been hazed so badly he'd attempted suicide. A female sergeant who'd been passed over for promotion 4 times despite sterling evaluations. A male corporal who'd reported Mason for stealing supplies and found himself facing trumped-up charges for insubordination. Pattern after pattern, case after case, all of them ending the same way the accuser punished Mason, protected Burke's fingerprints invisible, but everywhere. He's careful, Torres said. Burke never puts anything in writing, never gives direct orders that can be traced. But everyone knows. When Mason needs something to disappear, it disappears. Maya was recording everything on her encrypted phone. How does the communication work? How does Mason contact Burke when he needs help? Torres thought about it. They have lunch together once a week. Off base at a diner about 20 minutes away. Just the 2 of them. No witnesses. When's their next lunch? Tomorrow. Thursdays at noon. Maya nodded slowly. Tomorrow. That gave her less than 24 hours to prepare. One more question, she said. You mentioned supplies being stolen. What kind of supplies? Torres hesitated. I'm not sure. The corporal who reported it, Martinez, he said he saw Mason loading boxes into a personal vehicle. Equipment, he thought. Maybe electronics. Did Martinez keep any records? If he did, they're gone now. He was discharged 6 months ago. Bad conduct. Maya filed that away. Theft of military property. If she could prove it, that was a criminal offense, something even Burke couldn't make disappear quietly. Torres, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Keep your head down for the next 48 hours. Don't change anything about your behavior. Don't let Mason suspect you've talked to anyone. And then everything changes. Torres nodded slowly. I hope you know what you're doing, Lieutenant Commander. So do I. They left separately. Torres first, then Maya 5 minutes later. The basement was quiet again, but Maya's mind was racing. Burke and Mason. Lunch tomorrow. Off-base location. She needed to be there. She needed to hear what they said when they thought no one was listening. She pulled out her phone and typed, Need surveillance equipment. Directional mic recording capability. Can you deliver by tonight? The response came in seconds. Affirmative. Drop point Charlie 2200. Maya put away her phone and headed upstairs. Time to play the cleaning lady one more time. The morning passed in tense normalcy. Maya cleaned, Mason watched, and everyone else tried to stay out of the crossfire. At 1100, Mason called her into his office. It was the first time she'd been in this room, small, cluttered, dominated by a desk covered in papers and a wall of commendations that Mason had clearly hung himself. He sat behind the desk with his feet up, looking at her like she was a puzzle he'd finally solved. Close the door. Maya did. Sit. She sat. Mason leaned forward, elbows on the desk. I made some more calls this morning. To your cleaning company, to the temp agency that placed you, To the county records office. Maya kept her face blank. You want to know what I found? What did you find, Sergeant? Nothing. Mason smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Absolutely nothing. Your social security number leads to a dead end. Your address doesn't exist. The cleaning company has no record of anyone named Maya Chen on their payroll. Maya's heart rate increased slightly, but her expression didn't change. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Mason said, his voice dropping dangerously. Who are you? And what are you really doing in my building? Maya considered her options. She could maintain the lie, but Mason clearly wasn't buying it anymore. She could reveal the truth, but that would blow the entire operation. Or, I'm exactly who I said I am, she said calmly. A contractor doing a job. If there are problems with my paperwork, that's between me and my employer. Wrong answer. Mason stood up and walked around the desk. He perched on the edge inches away from her, using his size to intimidate. Let me tell you what I think, he said. I think someone sent you here to spy on me. I think you've been documenting everything, building some kind of case. And I think whoever's behind this is going to be very disappointed when they realize their little spy got caught. Maya looked up at him. That's quite a theory. It's more than a theory. It's a fact. Mason leaned down, his face close to hers. I've been in this game a long time, sweetheart. I know how it works, and I know how to make problems disappear. Like you made Captain Rodriguez disappear. The words were out before Maya could stop them. A calculated risk, or maybe just anger, finally breaking through. Mason's expression flickered. Surprise, then anger, then something cold and dangerous. What did you say? Captain Rodriguez. She filed a complaint against you. 3 weeks later, she was transferred to Alaska. Maya held his gaze. That's quite a coincidence, Sergeant. Mason's hand shot out and grabbed her arm. Hard. Who told you about Rodriguez? Maya didn't flinch. Does it matter? Everyone knows. You're not as careful as you think. Mason's grip tightened. His face was red now, veins pulsing in his temple. Listen to me very carefully, he said through clenched teeth. I don't know who you are or what you think you're doing, but if you mention Rodriguez again, if you even think about causing problems for me, I will end you. Do you understand? Maya looked at his hand on her arm. Then she looked at his face. Are you threatening me, Sergeant? I'm making you a promise. Good, Maya smiled, because I want to make sure we're both clear on where we stand. Something in her expression made Mason hesitate. For just a moment, uncertainty flickered in his eyes, the realization that maybe he wasn't in control of this situation after all. Then the moment passed, and he released her arm. Get out of my office. Maya stood. Yes, sir. She walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. Sergeant, Mason looked up. You should be more careful about who you threaten. You never know who might be listening. She left before he could respond. Outside, she let out a slow breath. That had been close, too close. She'd let her emotions get the better of her, mentioned Rodriguez when she shouldn't have. But it had also confirmed something important. Mason was scared. Beneath all that bluster and intimidation, he was terrified that his carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. Good. He should be. At 2200, Maya collected the surveillance equipment from Drop Point Charlie, a concealed location behind the motor pool that Whitfield's team used for covert exchanges. The package contained a directional microphone capable of picking up conversations from 50 meters away, a digital recorder with 12 hours of storage, and a set of wireless earbuds for real-time monitoring. Military grade. Untraceable. Exactly what she needed. She spent the next 2 hours testing the equipment, running through scenarios, planning her approach. The diner where Burke and Mason met was a small place off Highway 76. Isolated quiet. the kind of spot where two people could talk without being overheard. Or so they thought. Maya would arrive early, position herself within range, and record everything. If Burke and Mason discussed anything incriminating, anything about Rodriguez, or the missing supplies, or their arrangement, she'd have proof. Real proof. The kind that couldn't be buried or explained away. At midnight, her phone buzzed. Encrypted message from Whitfield. Whitfield status report. Maya typed, equipment received. Surveillance operation tomorrow, 1200. Will report afterward. Whitfield, be careful. Burke is connected. If he catches you, Maya. He won't. Whitfield, Maya. I mean it. This isn't Afghanistan. There are rules here, procedures. If you get caught conducting unauthorized surveillance on a colonel. Maya stared at the message for a long moment. He was right. If she was caught, there would be consequences. Her career, her freedom, everything she'd worked for, all of it could disappear in an instant. But then she thought about Wheeler, punished for showing kindness. About Torres, trapped in a unit she couldn't escape. About Captain Rodriguez, exiled to Alaska for telling the truth. She typed, "Some things are more important than rules." Whitfield. Your father said the same thing once. Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Whitfield. He was right. And so are you. Good luck tomorrow. She put away the phone and lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow. Everything would change tomorrow. Either she'd get the evidence she needed to bring down Burke and Mason, or she'd be the next person to disappear. The diner was called Rosie's, a small place with faded paint and a parking lot that had seen better days. Maya arrived at 11:30, parked her rental car behind an abandoned gas station 200 meters away, and set up her equipment. The directional microphone was disguised as a Thermos military technology at its finest. She aimed it at the diner's back booth where Burke and Mason always sat according to Torres's intel, and tested the audio feed. Clear as a bell. Now she just had to wait. At 11:55, a government sedan pulled into the lot. Colonel Burke emerged, silver hair, catching the sunlight face, set in the expression of a man who had places to be. At 12:02, Mason's truck arrived. He jumped out, looked around nervously, then headed inside. Maya settled the earbuds into place and hit record. For the first 10 minutes, they talked about nothing. The weather, the upcoming inspection, a football game Burke had watched the previous weekend. Then Mason leaned forward, voice dropping. "We have a problem." "I know. You called me at midnight to tell me about it." "The cleaning girl. She's not who she says she is." Burke sighed. "Derek, we've been over this. She's a temp worker. She'll be gone in a week." "She mentioned Rodriguez." Silence. "She mentioned her by name," Mason continued. "Asked how she disappeared. Said everyone knows." When Burke spoke again, his voice had changed. Colder. Harder. "What exactly did she say? That Rodriguez filed a complaint and got transferred. That I'm not as careful as I think." Mason's voice was tight. "Someone's been talking Harrison. Someone inside the unit." "Do you know who?" "No, but I'm going to find out." "No." Burke's response was sharp. "You're going to do nothing. The inspection is in less than 3 weeks. The last thing we need is you conducting your own investigation and drawing attention." "So what am I supposed to do? Just let her walk around asking questions?" "You're supposed to act normal. Go about your business. Stop threatening cleaning contractors and giving them ammunition." "I didn't threaten her." "Derek." Burke's voice was ice. "I've known you for 15 years. I know exactly what you did. And I'm telling you, stop. Right now. Before you make this worse." Silence again. Maya held her breath. What if she's a plant? Mason asked finally. What if someone sent her to gather evidence? Then we deal with it, quietly, but not until we know for certain. Burke paused. I have contacts at NCIS. I'll make some calls, see if anyone's running an operation on this base. And if they are, then we'll know, and we'll act accordingly. Maya's blood ran cold. Burke had contacts at NCIS. If he started making calls, asking questions, her cover could be blown within hours. There's something else, Mason said, his voice even lower now. Maya had to strain to hear through the microphone. The shipment next week. The one from the warehouse. What about it? I'm having second thoughts. After Rodriguez, after this cleaning girl, everything feels wrong. Like the walls are closing in. The shipment goes forward as planned. We've already made commitments. What commitments to who? Burke's voice turned razor sharp. That's not your concern. Your job is to make sure those supplies get loaded, transported, and delivered. Everything else is above your pay grade. Maya's mind raced. Shipment, warehouse, supplies being loaded and transported. This wasn't just harassment cover-ups. This was theft, military property being stolen and sold, and Burke was at the center of it. Harrison, if we get caught, we won't get caught. We haven't been caught in 4 years. The only way this falls apart is if you panic and do something stupid. Burke's chair scraped. Which is exactly what you're doing right now. I'm not panicking. I'm being careful. No, you're being paranoid. And paranoia makes people sloppy. Burke stood. Maya could hear him through the microphone, his footsteps moving toward the door. The shipment is Tuesday night. Have everything ready. And for God's sake, stay away from that cleaning girl. If she is a plant, the worst thing you can do is give her more ammunition. And if she's not a plant, then she's just a cleaning girl who's smarter than she looks. Either way, she'll be gone in a week, and none of this will matter. The door opened and closed. Through her scope, Maya watched Burke walk to his car and drive away. Mason stayed in the booth for another 15 minutes, drinking coffee, staring at nothing. Then he left, too. Maya waited until both vehicles were out of sight before she stopped recording. Tuesday night, a shipment from the warehouse. 4 years of theft covered up by a colonel and executed by a sergeant who'd sold his soul for protection. She had them. Not just for harassment, not just for abuse of power, for theft of military property, conspiracy, corruption crimes that carried serious prison time. Maya pulled out her phone and typed, I have everything. Burke and Mason. Theft operation Tuesday night. Need extraction team ready. Whitfield's response was immediate, confirmed. Sending details. Well done, Lieutenant Commander. Maya allowed herself one moment of satisfaction. Then she started the car and headed back to base. The mission wasn't over yet. When she arrived at her quarters, there was another note under her door. Her hand froze on the doorknob. Slowly, she picked up the paper. Same handwriting as before. Same plain paper. But the message was different. It read, I know what you did today. I know where you went. Meet me tonight. 2300, the motor pool. Come alone or the recording goes to Mason. Maya read it twice. Someone had followed her. Someone had seen her conduct surveillance. Someone had evidence that could destroy everything. She checked her watch. 1845. Just over 4 hours until the meeting. 4 hours to figure out who was threatening her, and 4 hours to decide what she was going to do about it. Maya arrived at the motor pool at 22:45, 15 minutes early. Enough time to assess the situation, identify potential threats, plan escape routes. The area was dark, quiet, deserted. Perfect for a clandestine meeting. Perfect for an ambush. She positioned herself behind a maintenance truck and waited. At 22:58, a figure emerged from between two vehicles. Small, hesitant, moving with the nervous energy of someone who wasn't used to sneaking around. Wheeler. Maya stepped out of the shadows. "Private Wheeler." Wheeler spun around, hand flying to his chest. "Jesus, you scared me." "You sent the notes." Yeah, I did." He looked around nervously. "Can we talk somewhere less open? I feel like anyone could be watching." "They could be." Maya crossed her arms. "Start talking. You said you know what I did today. You said you have a recording." Wheeler's face flushed. "I lied about the recording. I don't have anything. I needed you to come. I needed to talk to you." Maya felt a wave of relief quickly suppressed. "That was a dangerous game, Private. I could have reported you. I could have assumed you were working with Mason." "I know, but I didn't know how else to get your attention." Wheeler stepped closer, his voice dropping. "I saw you leave the base today. I saw you drive toward Highway 76. And I know there's only one thing on Highway 76 that matters. Rosie's Diner, where Mason and Burke have their weekly meetings." Wheeler nodded. "I've known about those meetings for months. I've wanted to do something, say something, but I didn't know who to trust." Maya studied his face. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped with the weight of too many secrets. "How did you know I wasn't just a cleaning contractor?" Wheeler laughed bitterly. "Because cleaning contractors don't have eyes like yours. They don't move like you move, and they definitely don't stand up to Mason the way you did yesterday." You heard about that? Everyone heard about it. You mentioned Rodriguez by name, in Mason's office. That took guts." Wheeler's expression hardened. "Or it took someone who knew they had backup." Maya said nothing. "I'm not stupid, ma'am. Whatever you're calling yourself, I know you're here for a reason. And I'm guessing that reason involves taking down Mason and whoever's been protecting him. And if it does, then I want to help." Maya was quiet for a long moment. Wheeler was a risk. Young, untested, emotionally compromised. But he was also an insider with knowledge she needed. "Why?" she asked. "Why risk everything to help someone you don't even know?" Wheeler's jaw tightened. "Because 8 months ago I watched a friend try to kill himself. Private Reyes. Mason hazed him so badly he couldn't take it anymore. Pills in the barracks. We found him just in time." Maya felt her stomach drop. "I read about that incident. It was classified as accidental overdose. Because Mason made it classified that way. Threatened everyone who knew the truth. Said if we talked, we'd end up like Rodriguez." Wheeler's voice cracked. "Reyes is in a VA hospital now. Can't even remember his own name most days. And Mason walks around like nothing happened." Maya reached out and put a hand on Wheeler's shoulder. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be effective." Wheeler looked up at her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Take him down. Take them both down. For Reyes. For Rodriguez. For everyone else they've hurt." Maya nodded slowly. "I'm working on it. But I need more than harassment allegations. I need proof of something bigger." "The shipments." Maya's attention sharpened. "What do you know about the shipments?" "I know they happen every few weeks, late at night when most of the base is asleep. Mason and a few guys he trusts load boxes from the warehouse into unmarked trucks." Wheeler swallowed. "I saw it once about 4 months ago. Walked by at the wrong time. Mason saw me see him." "What happened?" "He pulled me aside the next day. Said if I ever mentioned what I saw to anyone, he'd make sure I never made it home from my next deployment." Wheeler's hands were shaking. "I believed him." "Do you know what's in the boxes? Electronics mostly. Computers, communications equipment, maybe weapons parts. Stuff that's supposed to be inventoried and secured." Wheeler shook his head. "I don't know where it goes after it leaves the base, but I know it's not going anywhere legal. Maya's mind raced. This was exactly what she needed. A witness who could corroborate the theft operation. Someone who could testify about what Mason was doing. Wheeler, I need you to do something for me. Anything. The next shipment is Tuesday night. I need you to be there. Watch from a distance. Document everything you can without getting caught. Wheeler's face went pale. If Mason sees me, he won't. You'll stay hidden, stay safe. I just need independent verification of what's happening. Maya held his gaze. Can you do that? Wheeler was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened, squaring his shoulders. For Reyes, he said. Yeah, I can do that. Good. Maya checked her watch. We should go. Separately. Don't contact me again unless it's an emergency. And Wheeler, yeah, thank you for being brave enough to come forward. Wheeler smiled weakly. I'm not brave. I'm just tired of being scared. He disappeared into the darkness. Maya waited 5 minutes, then headed back to her quarters. Tuesday night. 3 days away. Everything was falling into place. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go very wrong. The next morning, Maya arrived at the administrative building to find chaos. Marines were gathered in clusters speaking in hushed voices. Torres caught her eye from across the room and shook her head slightly, a warning. Mason stood at the center of the main hall, face red with fury. I want everyone's attention, now! The room fell silent. Someone has been accessing classified personnel files. Someone has been asking questions they shouldn't be asking. Mason's eyes swept the assembled crowd. And someone is going to tell me who. Maya kept her expression blank, but her mind was racing. Had someone discovered her investigation? Had Wheeler talked to someone he shouldn't have? I'm going to make this very simple, Mason continued. If anyone in this building knows anything about unauthorized access to personnel records, you have until noon to come forward. After that, I start conducting individual interrogations. He let the words hang in the air. Dismissed. The crowd dispersed slowly. Maya moved toward her cleaning supplies, but Torres intercepted her. Not you, Torres whispered. He knows something. Knows what? I don't know. But he pulled my file this morning, asked the admin clerk about anyone who'd been accessing records outside their clearance level. Maya's blood ran cold. Did the clerk tell him anything? The clerk couldn't tell him anything because there's nothing to tell. You've been careful. Torres glanced over her shoulder. But Mason's not stupid. He's narrowing down the list of suspects. And right now that list is very short. How short? Me, you, and Wheeler. Torres met her eyes. If he figures out it's one of us, we're all done. Maya took a breath. We need to accelerate the timeline. What do you mean? I mean we can't wait until Tuesday. If Mason's this close to figuring things out, we need to move now. Torres stared at her. Move how you said you needed proof. Evidence of the shipments. I have evidence. I recorded Burke and Mason at the diner yesterday. Maya lowered her voice to barely a whisper. They talked about the shipments. They talked about 4 years of theft. I have enough to arrest them both. Torres's eyes went wide. Then why are we still waiting? Because I wanted to catch them in the act. Get visual evidence to go with the audio. But if Mason's about to blow our cover... Maya shook her head. Sometimes you have to take what you can get. What do you need from me? I need you to keep Mason distracted for the next few hours. Make him think you're the leak. Draw his attention away from me and Wheeler. You want me to sacrifice myself? I want you to buy me time. Maya gripped her arm. I'll have extraction teams on standby. The moment I submit my report, Burke and Mason will be arrested. You just have to hold on until then. Torres was quiet for a long moment. Fear warred with determination in her eyes. How long? She finally asked. 6 hours. Maybe less. Torres let out a shaky breath. Okay, I can do 6 hours. Torres, don't. Torres held up her hand. Don't thank me. Don't apologize. Just make it count. Make sure they pay for everything they've done. They will. I promise. Torres nodded once, then walked away. Maya watched her go, heart heavy with the weight of what she'd asked. Then she pulled out her phone and typed, "Emergency acceleration. Need extraction authorization within 6 hours. Confirm." The response came in seconds. Confirmed. Standing by. Maya put away her phone and headed for the storage closet. 6 hours. That was all the time she had. She was going to make it count. At 1,000, Torres made her move. She walked into Mason's office without knocking, closed the door behind her, and said the words that changed everything. "It was me. I've been asking questions about Rodriguez." Through the thin walls, Maya could hear Mason's response. Surprise, then anger, then a long silence that was somehow worse than both. "Why? Because she was my friend." Torres's voice was steady, but Maya could hear the fear underneath. "Because what you did to her was wrong, and because someone needed to finally say it out loud." Mason's laugh was ugly. "You think you're brave? You think coming in here and confessing makes you some kind of hero? I think it makes me someone who can look at herself in the mirror." Silence again. "You're done, Torres. You know that, right? Your career, your future, everything gone." Mason's voice dropped dangerously. "I'm going to make sure you never work in the military again." "Maybe, but at least I'll know I tried." The door slammed open. Mason dragged Torres out by her arm, face twisted with rage. "Get Colonel Burke on the phone," he barked at the nearest Marine. "Now." Maya watched from the corner, invisible, just another cleaning lady with a mop. But inside she was moving. Torres had bought her time. Now she had to use it. She slipped into the server room at 10:45. The door required a key card, but Maya had obtained a copy from Whitfield's team 3 days ago, just in case. The servers hummed quietly, row after row of metal boxes containing every digital record the building possessed. Personnel files, email archives, financial records, evidence. Maya plugged in her encrypted drive and started downloading. Everything related to Mason. Everything related to Burke. Supply manifests, transfer orders, complaint records that had somehow been marked as resolved without any resolution. 4 years of corruption flowing onto a single drive. At 11:12, her phone buzzed. "Message from Whitfield Burke is making calls. NCIS contact confirmed. Cover may be blown within hours." Maya typed back. "Almost done. 15 more minutes." Whitfield. "You may not have 15 minutes." Maya looked at the progress bar on her screen. 63% complete. She wasn't leaving without that data. At 11:18, the server room door opened. Maya spun around, hand instinctively reaching for a weapon she wasn't carrying. Colonel Burke stood in the doorway. "Lieutenant Commander Chen." His voice was ice. "I've been looking for you." Maya's mind raced. How did he know? How had he found her so fast? "Colonel Burke, I was just conducting unauthorized surveillance on military servers." Burke stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "Please, don't insult my intelligence." He moved closer. Maya backed up until she hit the server rack. "I made some calls this morning, to NCIS, to Naval Intelligence, to some friends at the Pentagon who owe me favors." Burke smiled coldly. "You're good, Lieutenant Commander. Very good. Your cover story held up longer than most." I don't know what you're talking about. Naval Inspector General's office. Special assignment to assess command climate. Burke laughed. You're not even 30 years old, and they sent you to take me down. I'm almost insulted. Maya's jaw tightened. You should be, because I already have everything I need. The recording from Rosie's diner. Yes, I assumed as much. Burke pulled out his phone. Unfortunately for you, I have friends who are very good at making recordings disappear. Not this time. No. Burke raised an eyebrow. What makes you so certain? Because I already sent a copy to Admiral Cross, 20 minutes ago. Maya met his eyes. Whatever you do to me, whatever you try to cover up, it's already too late. They know everything. For the first time, something flickered in Burke's expression. Uncertainty. Fear. Then it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. If that's true, he said slowly, then there's no reason not to tie up loose ends. He reached for the phone on his belt. Maya moved. Her hand shot out, striking his wrist before he could complete the motion. Burke grunted in pain, phone clattering to the floor. Maya kicked it away and put herself between Burke and the door. I wouldn't do that, sir. Burke stared at her, clutching his wrist. You just assaulted a superior officer. I just prevented you from calling Mason to have me disappeared. Maya's voice was steady. There's a difference. You think you've won? You think taking me down changes anything? Burke laughed, but there was desperation in it now. I'm not the only one. There are others, higher up, people who make me look like a choir boy. Then we'll take them down too, one at a time. Burke shook his head. You don't understand. The things I've done, the people I've protected, it's bigger than one base, bigger than one operation. You're talking about a network that spans the entire Pacific Fleet. Maya felt the weight of his words, but she didn't let it show. Then I guess we've got our work cut out for us. The door burst open. Whitfield stood there, flanked by 2 MPs in full tactical gear. Colonel Burke, you're under arrest for theft of military property, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Whitfield's voice was hard. Lieutenant Commander Chen, are you all right? Maya stepped back. I'm fine, sir. Good. Whitfield nodded to the MPs. Take him. Burke didn't resist as they cuffed him, but as they led him past Maya, he stopped. This isn't over, he said quietly. You've opened a door you can't close. And when you see what's on the other side, move. The MP pushed him forward. Maya watched them go, Burke's words echoing in her mind. A network spanning the entire Pacific Fleet, others higher up. She'd thought this was the end. It was just the beginning. Mason was arrested 2 hours later. MPs found him in his office, shredding documents in a desperate attempt to destroy evidence. They caught him with a shredder full of supply manifests in one hand and his service pistol in the other. For one terrible moment, Maya thought he was going to use it. On the MPs, on himself, on anyone who got in his way. But in the end, Derek Bull Mason wasn't brave enough for that. He dropped the weapon and let them take him. The news spread through the building like wildfire. Within an hour, everyone knew. The sergeant who'd terrorized them for years was in custody. The colonel who'd protected him was gone. And the quiet cleaning girl who'd mopped their floors, she was a decorated naval officer who'd brought them both down. Wheeler found Maya in the break room just before 1500. His face was pale, shell-shocked, but there was something else there too. Hope. Is it true? He asked. Is it really over? It's over, Maya confirmed. Mason and Burke are both in custody. They'll be charged formally by end of day. Wheeler let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for months. I can't believe it. I never thought... I hoped, but I never really believed. Believe it. Maya put a hand on his shoulder. You helped make this happen, Wheeler. Your testimony about the shipments, your willingness to come forward that mattered. I didn't do anything. I just talked. Sometimes talking is the bravest thing you can do. Wheeler was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question she'd been expecting. What happens now, to the rest of us, I mean? Everyone who looked the other way. Everyone who stayed quiet. Maya considered her answer carefully. Some of them will face consequences, particularly anyone who actively participated in the cover-ups. She paused. But for people like you, people who were afraid but came forward anyway, there's a difference between being complicit and being scared. I was both. And now you're neither. Maya met his eyes. That's what matters, Wheeler. Not who you were, who you choose to be going forward. He nodded slowly. Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. Maya smiled. And thank Reyes. His suffering wasn't for nothing. Wheeler's eyes glistened. He nodded once more, then walked away. Maya watched him go. One battle won, but Burke's warning still haunted her. Others higher up. A network spanning the Pacific Fleet. This was far from over. At 1800, Maya stood in Colonel Whitfield's office for a formal debrief. The recordings have been authenticated, Whitfield said. Burke and Mason are both facing court-martial. The theft operation has been traced back 4 years with an estimated value of over $2 million in stolen equipment. And Burke's claims about a larger network. Whitfield hesitated. We're investigating, but that's above both our pay grades for now. Maya nodded. She'd expected as much. There's something else, Whitfield added. Admiral Cross called personally. She wants to commend you for your work here. I don't need commendations. I told her you'd say that. Whitfield smiled slightly. She also wants you to stay. Run the cleanup operation. Help rebuild the command climate at this base. Maya was quiet for a moment. She thought about Wheeler, about Torres, about all the Marines who'd spent years under Mason's thumb. How long? 6 months. Maybe longer. Whitfield studied her face. You've earned the right to say no. After what you've done here, you could have any assignment you want. Maya looked out the window. Somewhere out there, Marines were running cadence training, living their lives. Some of them had participated in the abuse. Some had looked away. But some had shown courage even when courage seemed impossible. I'll do it, she said finally. But I want authority to make real changes, not just cosmetic fixes. Done. And I want Torres promoted. She risked everything to help me. I'll put in the paperwork myself. Maya turned back to face him. Then I'm in. Whitfield extended his hand. Welcome to Camp Pendleton, Lieutenant Commander Chen. Officially this time. Maya shook it. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Whitfield's eyes held something like pride. Thank your father. He raised a hell of a daughter. Maya touched the anchor behind her ear. For you, Dad, she thought. All of it for you. That evening, Maya walked through the administrative building one last time, as a cleaning contractor. The mops and buckets were gone. The civilian clothes had been replaced by her Navy uniform eagles gleaming on her collar. Marines who'd laughed at her 3 days ago now snapped to attention as she passed. She stopped at Mason's old office. The door stood open, the room empty. Lieutenant Commander? Maya turned. Torres stood in the hallway, looking uncertain. I heard you're staying, Torres said. For a while. Someone needs to help clean up the mess. Torres smiled weakly. Ironic, considering how this all started. Isn't it? Maya gestured toward the office. I'm thinking of using this as my workspace. A little reminder of what we're fighting against. That's actually kind of perfect. Torres hesitated. I wanted to apologize for not speaking up sooner, for not being braver. You were brave when it counted. Maybe. Torres shook her head. I keep thinking about all the people who got hurt while I stayed quiet. Rodriguez, Reyes, everyone else. If I just don't, Maya cut her off. You can't change the past. All you can do is shape the future. Torres was quiet for a long moment. Is that something your father taught you? Maya smiled. Actually, it's something I learned from a very wise grandmother, but I like to think my father would have agreed. Torres nodded. For what it's worth, I'm glad you came here. Even if the way it happened was unconventional, I was going to say completely insane, but unconventional works too. They both laughed. It felt good, Maya realized. The tension of the past 4 days finally beginning to release. Go home, Torres. Get some sleep. Maya put a hand on her shoulder. Tomorrow we start rebuilding. I'm going to need people I can trust. Torres straightened. You've got them, ma'am. Whatever you need. She walked away, leaving Maya alone in the empty hallway. Maya pulled out her phone. One last message to send. She typed mission complete. Burke and Mason in custody. Beginning phase 2 tomorrow. The response came from Admiral Cross herself. Outstanding work, Lieutenant Commander. Your father would be proud. Maya smiled and put away the phone. Her father would be proud. And somewhere, somehow, she liked to think he was watching. She walked out of the building into the California evening uniform, crisp head high. The battle was won. But the war, the real war against corruption and abuse, and the people who enabled it, was just beginning. And Maya Chen was exactly where she needed to be. 6 months later, Maya stood at the front of a training room filled with 32 officers from bases across the Pacific Fleet. They watched her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Most of them had heard the story by now. The 20-year-old lieutenant commander who'd gone undercover as a cleaning lady. The sergeant who'd thrown a mop at her chest. The colonel who'd protected him for 4 years. The legend had grown with each retelling. Maya didn't care about legends. She cared about change. My name is Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen, she began. 6 months ago, I was assigned to this base to assess command climate. What I found was a system that had been corrupted from the inside out. She clicked to the first slide, a photo of Derek Mason in handcuffs. Sergeant Mason is currently serving 8 years at Fort Leavenworth. Theft of military property, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, multiple counts of harassment and abuse of authority. She clicked again. Colonel Burke's mugshot. Colonel Saad Burke received 12 years. His network extended to 3 other bases, involving over $2 million in stolen equipment and 17 officers who participated in cover-ups. Murmurs rippled through the room. But here's what those numbers don't tell you. Maya set down the remote. They don't tell you about Private Reyes who tried to kill himself because no one would listen. They don't tell you about Captain Rodriguez who lost her career for telling the truth. They don't tell you about the dozens of Marines who suffered in silence because they believed the system would never protect them. She let the words hang in the air. That's why you're here. Not to learn about regulations or policies or proper reporting procedures. You're here to learn how to see what's really happening in your commands. How to listen when people are afraid to speak. How to be the kind of leader who makes corruption impossible, not just illegal. A hand went up. Major Collins, according to his name tag. Lieutenant Commander, with respect, most of us have been doing this job for years. We know how to lead. Do you? Maya met his eyes. Then let me ask you something, Major. In your command right now, is there anyone being mistreated? Anyone being harassed or bullied or passed over unfairly? Collins shifted uncomfortably. Not that I'm aware of. And there's the problem. Maya walked toward him slowly. Not that you're aware of. But are you looking? Are you asking? Are you creating an environment where people feel safe telling you the truth? Collins didn't answer. Sergeant Mason's abuse wasn't a secret, Maya continued. Everyone in that building knew what he was doing. They talked about it in whispers, complained to each other in private, watched him destroy careers and ruin lives. But no one spoke up officially. Do you know why? Silence. Because they believed it wouldn't matter. They believed the system was rigged. They believed that people like Colonel Burke would protect people like Sergeant Mason, and anyone who complained would just become the next victim. She turned to address the full room. Your job isn't just to follow regulations. It's to make your people believe that regulations matter, that complaints get heard, that courage gets rewarded instead of punished. Maya's voice hardened. Because when people stop believing in the system, that's when men like Mason thrive. The room was silent. 32 officers, some of them twice her age, hanging on her words. Over the next 3 days, we're going to talk about warning signs, red flags, the subtle indicators that something's wrong in a command even when no one's filing formal complaints. Maya picked up the remote again. But first I want to introduce you to someone. The door opened. Torres walked in, wearing the insignia of a newly promoted sergeant. This is Sergeant Elena Torres. 6 months ago, she risked her career to help expose the corruption in this building. She's going to tell you what it's like to be the person who wants to speak up but doesn't know if anyone will listen. Torres took her place beside Maya. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice was steady. I spent 11 months watching Sergeant Mason abuse his authority, she began. 11 months of knowing something was wrong and doing nothing about it, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. The officers leaned forward. Maya stepped back and let Torres take the floor. This was how change happened, not through policies or directives, through stories, through people willing to share their failures so others could learn from them. One conversation at a time. One leader at a time. The training sessions ran for 3 days. Maya and Torres tag-teamed the presentations, sharing different perspectives on the same events. The officers asked questions, challenged assumptions, shared their own experiences. By the end, something had shifted. Major Collins approached Maya after the final session. His expression was different now. Humbled. I owe you an apology, Lieutenant Commander. Maya raised an eyebrow. For what? For assuming I had nothing to learn. Collins shook his head. I've been in the Corps for 18 years. I thought I knew everything about leadership. But listening to you and Sergeant Torres these past 3 days, I realized I've been blind to a lot of things. Like what? Collins hesitated. There's a corporal in my unit. Quiet kid, keeps to himself. Some of the other Marines give him a hard time. Nothing major, just jokes, comments, the kind of stuff that seems harmless until it isn't. And you let it happen. I didn't see it as a problem. I thought it was just how guys blow off steam. Collins met her eyes. But after hearing what happened to Private Reyes, I realized that's exactly how it starts. Small things that get ignored until they become big things. Maya nodded slowly. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to talk to him, the corporal. Ask him directly how he's being treated, and then I'm going to make it clear to my unit that harassment doesn't get dismissed as blowing off steam. Not anymore. Maya extended her hand. That's a good start, Major. Collins shook it. Thank you, Lieutenant Commander, for opening my eyes. He walked away. Torres appeared at Maya's side. Think he means it? I think he wants to mean it. Maya watched Collins go. Whether he follows through, that's up to him. One down, a few thousand to go. Maya smiled. We've got to start somewhere. 3 weeks later, Maya received an unexpected visitor. She was in her office reviewing reports from the ongoing investigation into Burke's network when Wheeler knocked on the door. Ma'am, there's someone here to see you. He says it's important. Who is it? Wheeler's expression was strange. He says his name is Derek Mason. Maya's blood went cold. Mason is in prison. Not Sergeant Mason. Wheeler swallowed. His father. Maya stared at him for a long moment. Then she stood. Send him in. The man who walked through her door was in his 60s, weathered and worn with the same square jaw as his son, but none of the arrogance. He moved slowly, carefully, like someone carrying a weight too heavy to bear. Lieutenant Commander Chen. His voice was rough. Thank you for seeing me. Mr. Mason, I have to admit I wasn't expecting this. I'm sure you weren't. He lowered himself into the chair across from her desk. I came to apologize. Maya kept her expression neutral. For what your son did, for what I failed to do. Mason Sr. met her eyes. Derek was always difficult, even as a boy. He had a mean streak, a need to dominate. I saw it. His mother saw it. But we told ourselves he'd grow out of it, that the military would straighten him out. It didn't. No, it gave him power. And power in the hands of someone like Derek. He shook his head. I should have done something. Years ago, when I first started hearing stories about how he treated people under his command. Maya leaned back in her chair. You knew, I suspected. He'd call sometimes bragging about how he ran his unit. The way he talked about the people who worked for him. It wasn't respect. It was contempt. Mason Sr.'s voice cracked. I told myself it was just talk. Just Derek being Derek. I didn't want to believe my own son was capable of... He couldn't finish the sentence. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Mason, I appreciate you coming here, but I'm not sure what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I want you to have this. Maya took the envelope. Inside was a check. Her eyes widened at the amount. That's everything I have in savings, Mason Sr. said. I want it to go to the people Derek hurt. Private Reyes if there's a way to help with his medical care. Captain Rodriguez for what she lost. Anyone else who suffered because of my son. Mr. Mason, I can't accept... Please. His voice broke. I know it doesn't make up for anything. I know money can't fix what Derek did, but I need to do something. I need to feel like I tried to make it right. Maya looked at the check in her hands. $50,000. A lifetime of savings from a man who looked like he'd worked hard for every penny. There's a fund, she said finally, for families of service members affected by command abuse. I can make sure this goes there. Relief flooded Mason Sr.'s face. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the people who are brave enough to come forward. They're the ones who make change possible. He nodded and stood slowly. At the door, he paused. Lieutenant Commander, can I ask you something? Go ahead. My son, when you confronted him, was there any remorse? Any sign that he understood what he'd done? Maya thought about Mason in handcuffs, the defiance in his eyes, the complete absence of shame. She could lie. It would be kinder. But this man deserved the truth. No, she said quietly. I'm sorry. There wasn't. Mason Sr. closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. I was afraid of that. He straightened his shoulders. Thank you for your honesty, Lieutenant Commander. And thank you for stopping him. Someone should have done it a long time ago. He walked out. Maya sat alone in her office for a long time, staring at the check in her hands. Derek Mason had caused so much pain, so much damage. And in the end, the person who suffered most might be the father who'd loved him despite everything. She put the check in her drawer and went back to work. There was always more work to do. 8 months after the arrests, Admiral Patricia Cross made a personal visit to Camp Pendleton. The entire base turned out for her arrival. Marines in dress uniforms, officers standing at attention, the kind of ceremony usually reserved for visiting dignitaries. But Cross wasn't interested in ceremony. She walked straight to Maya's office and closed the door. Lieutenant Commander, I've been following your progress. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me yet. Cross sat down without being invited. I'm here because we have a problem. Maya's stomach tightened. What kind of problem? Burke wasn't lying. About the network. About it being bigger than one base. Cross leaned forward. We've been investigating for 8 months. What we've found goes deeper than anyone imagined. How deep? Deep enough that I can't discuss the details here. Deep enough that the people involved have resources and connections that make Burke look like an amateur. Cross paused. Deep enough that I need someone I can trust absolutely to help me bring them down. Maya understood immediately. You want me to go undercover again? I want you to lead a task force, hand-picked personnel, off-the-books funding, full authority to pursue this wherever it leads. Even if it leads to people above your rank, Cross smiled grimly, especially if it leads there. Maya was quiet for a long moment. She thought about everything she'd built here, the training programs, the relationships, the slow, steady work of changing a culture. She thought about Wheeler now, a corporal mentoring new arrivals the way someone should have mentored him. She thought about Torres running her own unit with the kind of integrity that made Maya proud. She thought about her father who'd spent his life serving a system he believed in, even when that system failed him. Ma'am, I'm honored by the offer, but I have responsibilities here. People counting on me. I know. That's why I'm giving you a choice. Cross stood. You can stay here, continue your work, make a difference one base at a time. Or you can come with me and potentially make a difference across the entire Pacific Fleet. Those are very different jobs. They are, but they both matter. Cross headed for the door. Take a week to decide. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. Admiral, Cross paused. Why me? There must be hundreds of officers more experienced, more senior. Why a 21-year-old lieutenant commander? Cross turned back. Because 8 months ago you walked into a building full of people who'd given up on the system. And instead of giving up too, you made them believe again. That's rarer than experience. That's rarer than rank. She smiled. That's leadership. She left. Maya sat alone with the weight of the decision. That evening she visited a place she'd been avoiding for 8 months. The base cemetery was quiet at dusk. Rows of white headstones stretching toward the horizon. Maya walked among them until she found what she was looking for. Not a grave. A memorial. A small stone bench dedicated to service members who'd taken their own lives. She sat down and pulled out her phone. Hey, Dad, she said quietly. I know you can't hear me, but I need to talk. Silence. Just the wind and the distant sound of evening retreat. Admiral Cross offered me a job, a big one, hunting down the people behind Burke, the whole network. It could take years. It could be dangerous, and it means leaving everything I've built here. She looked up at the darkening sky. I keep thinking about what you would do, what you would want me to do, and I honestly don't know." Her voice cracked slightly. "You always said the mission comes first, but you also said the people come first. And right now, those two things feel like they're pulling me in different directions." A plane passed overhead, navigation lights blinking against the purple sky. "I miss you, Dad. I miss being able to ask you questions and actually get answers." Maya wiped her eyes. "But I think I already know what you'd say. You'd say to trust my gut, to follow what feels right, not what feels safe." She stood up, brushing off her uniform. "And I think following Admiral Cross is what feels right, even if it's scary, even if it means starting over somewhere new." She touched the memorial bench one last time. "I'll make you proud, Dad. I promise." She walked away into the gathering darkness. The decision was Mortier. 1 week later, Maya called her team together for the last time. Torres Wheeler and the core group of Marines who'd been with her since the beginning gathered in the training room where it had all started. "I wanted you to hear this from me," Maya said. "I've accepted a new assignment. I'm leaving Camp Pendleton." The reaction was immediate. Shock, disappointment, concern. "Leaving?" Torres stepped forward. "But we're just getting started. The programs, the training, will continue without me." Maya smiled. "That's the point. I built this to last, not to depend on one person." Wheeler looked stricken. "Where are you going?" "I can't discuss details, but it's important work. The kind of work that could prevent what happened here from happening at other bases." "So you're going after the rest of them," Torres said quietly. "Burke's network." Maya didn't confirm or deny. She didn't have to. "I need you to promise me something," she said instead. "All of you. Keep doing what we started here. Keep watching for the warning signs. Keep speaking up when something's wrong. Keep believing that the system can work even when it feels broken." She looked at each of them in turn. "You taught me something these past 8 months. You taught me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Every single one of you did the right thing when it would have been easier to stay silent." Her voice strengthened. "That's the legacy we're leaving here. Not programs or policies. People who refuse to look away. People who believe that integrity matters more than comfort. People who understand that leadership isn't a rank, it's a choice." Torres stepped forward and saluted. One by one, the others followed. Maya returned the salute, throat tight with emotion. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." The next morning, Maya packed her few belongings and headed for the front gate. She paused at the administrative building one last time. The place where it had all started. Where Mason had thrown a mop at her chest and changed both their lives forever. The building looked different now. Cleaner. Brighter. Like something had lifted. Or maybe that was just her imagination. "Lieutenant Commander." Maya turned. Wheeler stood behind her, slightly out of breath from running to catch up. "I wanted to give you something." He held out a small box. "It's not much, but—" Maya opened it. Inside was a simple silver charm in the shape of a mop. She laughed. "Wheeler. So you don't forget where you came from." He smiled, but his eyes were serious. "And so you remember that sometimes the people who look the most powerless are the most powerful of all." Maya closed her hand around the charm. "I won't forget," she said. "Any of it." "Good." Wheeler straightened. "Go save the world, ma'am. We'll hold down the fort here." Maya looked at him. The nervous private who'd been too scared to speak up 8 months ago. Now standing tall, confident, ready to lead. That was the real victory, not the arrests or the convictions, the transformation. You already are, she said quietly. She walked through the gate and climbed into the waiting vehicle. Admiral Cross was in the back seat. Ready? Cross asked. Maya looked out the window at Camp Pendleton one last time, at the building where she'd mopped floors and taken abuse and built something that would outlast her. Ready? She said. The vehicle pulled away. Behind her, the sun rose over Camp Pendleton, casting long shadows across the parade ground. Marines were already forming up for morning PT, their voices carrying in the cool air. Somewhere in that formation was Wheeler leading his squad, Torres running her unit, dozens of others who'd learned that courage was a choice, not a gift. Maya touched the mop charm in her pocket and smiled. She didn't know what the future held, didn't know how long the hunt for Burke's network would take or how dangerous it would become, didn't know if she'd ever come back to this place that had changed her life. But she knew one thing for certain. Her father had been right. Change didn't happen in courtrooms or policy meetings. It happened in small moments, in the sergeant who offered respect instead of contempt, in the private who spoke up instead of staying silent, in the choice to see people for who they were, not who they appeared to be. That was the real mission, and Maya Chen would spend the rest of her life fighting for it. The vehicle turned onto the highway, heading toward whatever came next. Maya didn't look back. She didn't need to. The past was settled. The future was waiting. And she was exactly where she needed to be.